Welcome in .Core. On October 19th, 2017, astronomer Robert Warwick was reviewing data collected by telescopes when something unusual caught his attention. The more closely he examined the information, the clearer it became. Before him was an object unlike anything science had ever encountered. An unknown body in the solar system was moving at an enormous speed of 59,000 miles per hour along a trajectory that clearly indicated it was not captured by the sun's gravity. It was traveling on a path that made it clear that it had come from interstellar space. The speed of the object was far too high for the sun to have pulled it into its gravitational field. Soon, scientists established that the size of this mysterious object was roughly comparable to a football field, but the real shock came with its shape. It had nothing in common with asteroids or comets known to science. Moreover, the object left behind no gas or dust trail, which is entirely uncharacteristic for comets approaching the sun. As research into the mysterious object deepened, the situation became even more inexplicable. Scientists discovered that before it had been detected, while it was still outside the reach of our instruments, it had passed dangerously close to the sun, just 23 million miles from its surface, which is closer than Mercury's orbit. And then something astonishing happened. The object suddenly accelerated nearly 3.5 times, reaching an incredible speed of 194,500 miles per hour, or 55 miles per second. It was as if some unknown force had given it a massive additional push. The mysterious interstellar visitor was given the name Oumuamua, which in Hawaiian means a scout or messenger that arrives first from afar. But what exactly this object was could not be determined. By the time it was first discovered, it was already rapidly moving away from us. Today, Oumuamua is more than 4.3 billion miles from Earth, leaving the solar system behind. Judging by its trajectory and speed, there's no chance that it will ever be in our proximity again. Its unusual shape, lack of a gas tail, and, most intriguingly, its arrival from interstellar space left scientists baffled. More and more researchers began to lean toward the hypothesis that Oumuamua might not be an ordinary space object at all, but an artificial spacecraft, possibly a messenger from an intelligent extraterrestrial civilization. To test this bold theory, a large-scale project was proposed, Project Lyra. Its mission was to launch a probe to intercept Oumuamua, get close to it, and finally find out what we're dealing with. Right after the discovery of Oumuamua, a wave of excitement spread through the scientific community. This object didn't fit into any known category, and no one could say what exactly we had encountered. It challenged everything we knew about space. Astronomers around the world urgently reproposed their telescopes, canceled their own research, just to catch a few more signals from before it vanished forever into the darkness of interstellar space. Initial estimates shortly after its discovery suggested that Oumuamua was about 1,300 feet long and only 130 feet wide. This elongated, cigar-like shape didn't resemble any known celestial body. But later, as new data arrived, scientists at McMaster University in Canada made their own calculations, suggesting that its dimensions could have been around 380 feet in length, 364 feet wide, and 62 feet thick, making it slightly larger than the Statue of Liberty. However, instead of an elongated cigar shape, the object might have been flatter, pancake-like in form. But even that shape is very unusual for space objects. Similar proportions have only been seen in rare cases, such as Arrokoth, a celestial body in the Kuiper belt beyond Neptune's orbit. Even so, such exceptions don't make Oumuamua any less mysterious. Its shape remains extremely atypical and continues to raise questions. We were observing something unusual and mysterious, an object hurtling through space at an incredible speed of 16 miles per second. That's faster than Voyager 1, one of the fastest spacecraft ever launched by humans. At such a speed, Oumuamua could cross the distance between New York and San Francisco in just 2 minutes and 38 seconds. This velocity indicated that the object was not bound by the sun's gravity, and soon this suspicion was confirmed. It was a distant interstellar visitor, but where exactly had it come from? And more importantly, what was it? The first thing astronomers expected to see as they observed the rapidly receding object was a bright tail of gas and dust. After all, they initially assumed it was a comet, and those behave predictably when approaching the sun. Under the influence of solar heat, ice and frozen gases on their surface begin to evaporate, ejecting dust and gas into space. These emissions form a glowing tail that trails behind the nucleus, reflecting sunlight. A vivid example is Comet Hale-Bopp, whose tail was visible to the naked eye from Earth in 1997. But Oumuamua defied all expectations. It flew past the sun without leaving any trace of evaporation. No gas, no dust, not even the faintest hint of a tail. Its behavior broke all the rules that apply to ordinary comets. This mysterious guest continued to baffle science. Its shape, trajectory, and incredible speed all pointed to one thing. We were dealing with something completely unique, unlike any object known to humanity. Tension continued to grow in the scientific community. The main question was, is Oumuamua just an ordinary cosmic body, or have we for the first time encountered extraterrestrial technology? But the strangest part was yet to come. It turned out that Oumuamua had accelerated, and not just accelerated, but had done so in a way that defied understanding, as if it were following its own plan. Scientists determined that 40 days before its discovery, the object had passed dangerously close to the Sun, just 23 million miles from its surface, and it was after this moment that it suddenly gained speed. At its peak, Oumuamua accelerated to 54 miles per second, 3.5 times faster than before its flyby of the Sun. That speed is truly astonishing. It was 5 times faster than Voyager 1 is currently traveling, 11 times faster than the Starship rocket, and 250 times faster than the speed of sound. This kind of acceleration is typically observed in comets when jets of dust and water vapor from their tail give them an additional boost. However, as we already mentioned, Oumuamua showed no signs of such activity. Something accelerated it. But what? Was Oumuamua a spaceship? What if this object isn't what it seemed to be? What if 8 years ago, something far more intriguing than a chunk of space ice or rock flew near Earth, perhaps a spacecraft created by another civilization? This is a hypothesis put forward in 2021 by astronomer Avi Loeb, then chair of Harvard University's astronomy department, along with his colleague Shmuel Bialy. They propose that the first detected interstellar object may have been a space probe. The researchers are convinced Oumuamua's strange behavior gives every reason to suspect that it might be something truly unorthodox. What intrigued scientists most was the moment the object unexpectedly accelerated during its pass by the Sun. Sure, the Sun's gravity could give it a push, but based on calculations, that acceleration should have been much weaker. That's why Avi and Shmuel propose a hypothesis. What if this wasn't just a rock from another star system, but an object using light sail technology? At first glance, the idea sounds fantastic, but it's based on real physics. A light sail is a thin and lightweight structure that can move using the pressure of light. Streams of photons from the Sun, for example, exert a tiny but constant pressure on the surface of sail, gradually accelerating it to very high speeds without the need for fuel. If Oumuamua had indeed such an ultra-thin structure capable of catching solar radiation pressure, then the solar wind could have given it the extra push. According to their calculations, for this to be possible, the sail's thickness would need to be just 0.3 to 0.9 millimeters, about the thickness of a human hair. Just imagine an object 380 feet long, and less than a millimeter thick. That may sound wildly unrealistic, but light sail technology already exists. For example, it was tested by the Japanese spacecraft Ikaros, the world's first probe to successfully use solar radiation as its propulsion source, which successfully journeyed toward Venus in 2010. Perhaps Oumuamua was something like that, an object equipped with a solar sail, designed to accelerate and change course as it passed by star systems. And if it truly was an artificially created device, it's entirely possible that in addition to the sail, it had other technological components, ones we can only speculate about for now. But one thing seems obvious. An object like this would need at least a system for scanning its surroundings and a means of communication to transmit data or receive signals from its creators. Bialy and Loeb also conducted calculations to determine whether Oumuamua's light sail could withstand a long interstellar journey. They considered the density of interstellar gas and dust as well as the speed at which the object would collide with these particles in space. The results were impressive. If Oumuamua really was a device like that, it could have traveled at least 16,000 light-years from its home star system while remaining intact. That said, the scientists themselves don't definitively claim that Oumuamua is a spacecraft. They simply believe that the possibility exists and that it's serious enough not to be dismissed in scientific discourse. If we assume that Oumuamua truly was an artificial object, the idea of a solar sail is just one possible version. It might have been a much more complex and advanced probe, For example, an active unmanned spacecraft sent out to study our solar system, and there are reasons to believe that it was indeed unmanned. Consider this. Oumuamua speed would allow it to travel 1 light-year in roughly 11 to 11.5 thousand years. Now compare that to the distance to the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, just over 4 light-years away. That would mean the trip would have taken Oumuamua around 44 to 46,000 years. Such journeys are simply impossible for living organisms, which means that if this was a ship, it was most likely controlled remotely, either by a program or by someone from afar. However, not everyone shares this point of view. Many scientists consider the idea of a possible spacecraft or artificial object to be overly speculative. In their opinion, there simply isn't enough direct evidence to support such bold claims. Scientists Alan Jackson and Steve Desch from Arizona State University propose their own hypothesis about the nature of Oumuamua. They suggest it may be a fragment of frozen nitrogen. This type of substance can be found, for example, on Pluto. When the spacecraft New Horizons flew past a dwarf planet in 2015, it observed icy plains like Sputnik Planitia, vast lakes of frozen nitrogen. The researchers suggest that a powerful impact could have broken off a chunk of such a surface from a Pluto-like planet, which then embarked on an interstellar journey. As it approached the sun, the nitrogen began to evaporate from the heat, creating a kind of jet propulsion that could explain the object's sudden acceleration. Meanwhile, 2 other scientists, Daryl Seligman of Cornell University and Jennifer Bordner of the University of California, Berkeley, have their own explanation for this mysterious object. According to them, Oumuamua was once an ordinary water-rich comet orbiting a distant star. But at some point, it was ejected into interstellar space. During its long journey through the galaxy, it was exposed to powerful cosmic rays, for example from supernova explosions. These rays could have transformed up to a third of its water ice into hydrogen molecules, which remained trapped inside the ice. Later, when Oumuamua reached our sun, it warmed up and the accumulated hydrogen started to escape like tiny jet streams. This is what gave the object an extra push. And the unusual behavior, such as a lack of a bright tail like typical comets, is explained by the fact that light hydrogen wouldn't generate enough for us to carry much dust with it. As a result, we see strong acceleration without any visible trail of dust or gas. Other scientists also share similar ideas to explain this puzzling object. Some go for even simpler hypotheses. Karen Meach, an astronomer at the University of Hawaii at Manoa, believes that the object is simply a very ordinary comet, but with a very low dust content, hence the lack of a tail and the unusual shape of Oumuamua. Perhaps it's not so rare at all. The fact that it seems atypical to us may simply reflect our limited experience. The universe contains a vast diversity of forms and structures, and a cigar-shaped or disc-shaped object might be much more common than we think. Most of them are likely just too far away for us to observe. Although the majority of the scientific community agrees that Oumuamua is most likely an asteroid or an unusual comet, we still have no definitive confirmation of this, which means a central question remains open. How can we ever truly know what this mysterious interstellar visitor really was? Methods are also being considered. For instance, laser propulsion, in which a powerful ground-based laser pushes the probe through space, giving it acceleration without a drop of fuel, or the previously mentioned solar sails, lightweight structures that capture the pressure of sunlight and gradually but surely accelerate the spacecraft across the cosmos. For now, these technologies are more experimental than practical, but they open the door for a new era of fast and efficient interstellar travel. As for the mission to reach Oumuamua, its launch is tentatively scheduled for sometime between 2030 and 2033. The most realistic scenario at this point involves a gravitational dance using Venus, Earth, and Jupiter. In this case, the probe will be able to catch up with the fast-receding Oumuamua in the early 2050s and, perhaps for the first time in history, come face-to-face with a messenger from another star system. But what if the mission fails? What if the probe is unable to catch up with Oumuamua? What if it approaches the object from a distance too far away to study it properly? Don't forget that this object is extremely small, emits no light, and sends no signals. Spotting it in deep space is nearly impossible. There's another risk. The probe could reach its target but fail to slow down in time. In that case, it would simply speed past, missing what might be our only chance to get close to our elusive target. Scientist Adam Hibbe believes that even in the event of failure, the mission would not be considered a failure. Even if Oumuamua can't be caught. The probe will become the first spacecraft in history to be purposefully sent beyond the boundaries of the solar system. The attempt to chase Oumuamua is also a chance to study the space beyond the solar system and to explore the universe from an extrasolar perspective, which could bring humanity countless benefits, the scientist asserts. To date, only two objects have crossed the heliopause, the boundary where the sun's influence ends and interstellar space begins. These are Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. But their journey beyond the solar system was more a matter of luck. No one expected the probes, which were designed to study planets, to travel so far or for so long. Unlike them, the new probe is being designed from the outset to venture into interstellar space. It will be equipped with state-of-the-art instruments capable of gathering valuable data about the environment beyond the solar system, data we just don't have. In that case, the probe would not only have a chance to catch up with Oumuamua and answer the question of what this object really is, but also transmit invaluable data about the mysteries of interstellar space. But what exactly do scientists hope to see if the probe does manage to reach Oumuamua? As already mentioned, most researchers believe this mysterious visitor is nothing more than an unusual comet or asteroid. It's assumed to be a dense object composed of rock and possibly metals. It contains no water or ice, and its reddish surface likely results from exposure to cosmic rays over millions of years. One scientist formed a general idea about the composition of Oumuamua. It begged the next question just as important. What kind of journey brought this object to our solar system? The answer to its true nature might lie not only in what it's made of, but where it came from. In 2018, astronomers attempted to reconstruct its trajectory retrospectively. Calculations showed that about 1 million years ago, it flew past several stars, coming closest to the red dwarf at 3757. It's possible that its interstellar journey began there, heading directly toward us. Another version suggests that Oumuamua might have come from the Vega star system in the Lyra constellation, about 25 light-years away. So far, astronomers haven't found any potentially habitable planets in that region, but that doesn't mean they're not there. It's quite possible that somewhere near Vega, a civilization exists that's responsible for the appearance of this mysterious object and all the excitement it stirred up in the scientific community. Now, Oumuamua is speeding toward the constellation Pegasus, continuing its strange voyage through space. By the end of 2025, the interstellar visitor will reach the outer edge of the Kuiper Belt, and by November 2038, just 13 years later, it will reach the heliopause, thus exiting the region influenced by the solar wind and entering true interstellar space. It appeared very suddenly and disappeared just as quickly, leaving behind more questions than answers. Its fleeting presence stirred the scientific community, and now researchers are determined not to miss the next such visitor from the depths of space. The European Space Agency is preparing a unique mission called Comet Interceptor. Its goal is to intercept objects arriving from interstellar space. But the main challenge is that these kinds of guests arrive at incredible speeds, and there simply isn't enough time to prepare and launch spacecraft once it's spotted. Therefore, ESA has made a bold decision. In 2029, they plan to launch a stakeout probe into space, which will be stationed at the Lagrange point L2, about 930,000 miles from Earth. This is a location where the gravitational forces of Earth, the Moon, and the Sun balance out, creating an ideal observational outpost. There, the probe will wait patiently, and as soon as an interstellar comet appears on the horizon, it will activate. The main probe will release 2 maneuverable satellites that will pinch the target and begin observation from multiple angles simultaneously. Most scientists today believe that Oumuamua is an ordinary cosmic body, most likely a comet or asteroid. Others suggest that we're dealing with technology from another civilization, but we cannot confirm either hypothesis yet. The object is already too far away, and its nature remains cloaked in mystery. The chase of the truth seems almost impossible, expensive, risky, and absurdly ambitious. But it's precisely these kinds of mysteries that fire up the imagination, and the desire to know the truth outweighs all obstacles. And what do you think flew past us in 2017? And should humanity spend resources on such missions? Share your opinion in the comments. And now we invite you to return to the object mentioned at the beginning of the video. When we discuss the shape of Oumuamua, we are talking about Arrokoth, a distant body in the Kuiper Belt that also holds many secrets. The Kuiper Belt has millions of strange objects in it. Some are 100 kilometers wide, and some are really huge, measuring 1,000 kilometers in diameter. So what are they? Kuiper Belt objects, or trans-Neptunian objects, are the remnants of the very birth of our solar system that happened about 4.5 billion years ago. It's a huge volume of space, as you can imagine. While we just discovered a tiny fraction of this region, we've already found about 2,000 Kuiper Belt objects. However, some of them raise more questions than they give answers. In April 2016, the New Horizons probe reached the dark and mysterious Kuiper Belt. As the probe was moving past Pluto and nearing the belt, it discovered a weird object on a strange trajectory. It was given the name Orion, and it was measured at 133 kilometers in diameter. While researchers were looking at it, it appeared to grow brighter and then dim in a precise rhythm, suggesting it was spinning. Most objects in the belt are made of ice and rock, but this thing seemed to be made of something different. Astronomers were right. But Orion was spinning so fast, about once every 5.5 hours, that if it were made of ice and rock, it should have torn itself apart from the centrifugal force alone. But it didn't. Scientists started to wonder, what is it, and what's it made of? It was time to get in for a closer look. So NASA steered the New Horizons probe in its direction, but something weird happened. As the probe approached Pluto on its way, communications were suddenly lost, as if something was jamming its signal. And as the probe moved away from Orion, communications were again restored, which turned out to be a computer glitch. But NASA was prevented from finding out the truth about the intriguing spinning object. Some researchers suggested that the spinning is creating artificial gravity in the middle of Orion, and it could be some giant ship, something you may have seen in science fiction films. However, the gravity would not be enough for human passengers, but for some other form of alien life, it could be. Could this object be an interstellar alien craft of some kind, like Oumuamua is thought to be? Most likely not, but there's always a slim chance. If you were an alien species and you wanted to get a look at the strange creatures known as humans, the Kuiper Belt will be the perfect place to hide. Perhaps in the future, we'll get another chance to get close and figure out exactly what Orion is. Still, there are Kuiper Belt objects we know a lot about. In 2014, astronomers discovered a weird celestial body in the outer reaches of our solar system. Its estimated size was roughly 32 kilometers across, and what's truly interesting is its shape resembles a snowman. In fact, scientists have long struggled to understand how such a shape could have formed. The object was named Arrokoth and has been visited by the U.S. space probe in 2019. It's become the most distant space object we ever examined at such a close distance. Arrokoth is an example of the most primitive object in the solar system, so you may think there's nothing interesting about it. However, for scientists, flying past Arrokoth was as thrilling as exploring Pluto up close. Thanks for watching Dark Core.